Hello there everybody. It's time for another vintage computer video from uxwbill. And for this video I'm jumping over to the other side of the fence, the Apple side of the fence. What I have here is a Powerbook Duo 270C, which was an early 90s answer to the question of a sub-notebook computer from Apple Computer. I found this machine at an auction not too far from here from a second-hand computer shop that later went out of business and was liquidating everything. They had a whole pile of ruined laptops in various states of disrepair, but this particular machine caught my eye because it had a floppy drive hanging off the back of it with a cable, and I knew immediately what it had to be. You can imagine my surprise when I pulled it out of the pile and I opened the lid and it woke up out of standby and came to life. But that wasn't the most surprising thing that happened, although more on the second surprise later. Of course, proving that no good deed in my life goes unpunished or unbalanced, as I was loading this thing into my truck to keep it away from the various heathens at the auction house who might thoughtlessly bulldoze it with a 27-inch CRT monitor, I didn't realize that my keys had slipped out of my pants pocket and fallen between the seats in my truck. So I had a rather frenzied ride home in my dad's white Buick, and I spent 2 hours looking for the second set of keys to my truck. So there you have it. That's just one of the many reasons why my life is a comedy. But this little machine is just so cool on so many regards. Anyway, the first thing about it is the battery. This is an aftermarket battery that was in the machine. This is a Battery Technology MC-T4. At the time I got this machine in 2002 or 2003, this battery still held a charge. But today it's pretty much lifeless. It's a nickel-metal hydride chemistry, and given that it's actually longer than the laptop and sticks out by a fair amount, I can only guess that it must be some kind of an extended runtime battery, as you can very clearly see. The other thing that's very cool about this, in this day and age of laptops being made in all kinds of Pacific Rim countries, at one point in time, Apple Computer really did build them in the U.S. This thing was assembled in the U.S. The power adapter that came with it was made in China, though. Being Apple's answer to the sub-notebook question, this machine oftentimes did not have a full card of onboard ports. Now, if you flip down the rear legs, there's an optional telephone modem that this one hasn't got, indicated by a telephone symbol on the flip-down leg there. And then there's the combination printer and modem port, which it does have. You could also run Apple Talk on that port if you so desired. There's the connector for the power adapter, and then there's the docking station connector, which, ignore that dark shadow in the middle that makes it look like the connector's burnt. There's really nothing wrong with it. This connector did a multitude of things. It provided a connection for the floppy drive, provided access to the machine's SCSI bus, and provided other functionality such as support for external Apple desktop bus keyboards and mice. I have the small docking station that would have come with this machine, not the big one. Now, this machine is generally in pretty good condition. As you can see, the display is clean and clear and undamaged. The internal plastics are in really good shape. Although in spots the camera makes them look a little bit yellowed, they don't seem to be that yellow in real life. This thing had a lot of interesting software on it. It seemed to belong to a music teacher. Anyway, I reloaded the Macintosh system on here. I believe this thing is running System 7.6. This is the other thing that's very unique. When I opened this machine and it came out of standby, as I told you earlier, I got another surprise. Let's power this thing up and see what that surprise was. Now, like most of you, when I think of early Macintosh portable, you can really hear that hard drive spin up, I think of something like the Powerbook 150 with its black and white display. So imagine my complete astonishment when this machine came up with a beautiful, much better than it looks in this video, full-color display panel. It turns out this is an active matrix display with a 640 by 480 resolution, and if you're willing to sacrifice about 80 pixels of resolution, you can actually run 640 by 400 and have a true color display as opposed to a 256 color one, which came in kind of handy when I was on the internet with this machine. I used a Shiva FastPath 5 Ethernet to AppleTalk bridge and got online using the iCab browser, which is still developed for older Macintosh systems as well as new ones. And this machine, although it's not terribly fast, is definitely a seriously cool piece of hardware. Now, I had the good fortune that being in IT at work, a bunch of old Macintosh software was in loose hands, and I came to have it by simply asking for it, so I was able to load a lot of truly cool vintage software on this machine. Pointing is accomplished with a built-in trackball. It has 2 buttons, although they both do the same thing. And the trackball, despite being a mechanical type, still works incredibly well. This machine has a 33 megahertz 68K 68030, sorry about that, processor, and a 68882 floating point unit. I have a number of vintage pieces of software on here, like an early release of Microsoft Word. Now, sometimes this machine exhibits traces of personality. Sometimes it's a little unstable. I don't know if there's maybe flaky memory chips in it or something, but here is Microsoft Word 5.1 for the Macintosh. Copyright 1992, November 4th, 1992. Now, there's some other neat things on here, including a very early release of the Insignia Soft Pc program. Back in the day, sometimes you had to run a PC program on your Macintosh, and one way to do that was to emulate a complete functional PC. And there were 2 products that did this early on. There was Connectix and Virtual PC, and then there was Insignia Softworks Soft PC. Incidentally, Insignia Softworks was the company that also developed the virtualization technology that's used in Windows NT Virtual DOS machines, or NTVDMs. So I found a copy of that kicking around, and it actually emulates an 8286 PC running MS-DOS 5.0. As you can hear, it even emulates the boot-up beep, although a bit sluggishly. And there's MS-DOS version 5.0. Let's see if I can get into the DOS shell here. Whoops. Didn't like that. Guess I didn't get it fixed. Try that again. That's better. You can see it can switch into the graphics mode, which is pretty cool, really. A bit sluggish, but definitely neat. Unfortunately, I really don't have enough time to demonstrate all the software on this machine to its fullest potential, so I think I'll just hit some of the highlights here. First of all, being a Macintosh, just like any other Macintosh, this machine has sound hardware in the form of one monophonic speaker to the right of the display panel. And really, for a little speaker, its sound isn't bad. These are the system sounds that can play when something happens. Most of these are pretty much what you'd expect, but I got a humorous one in that collection of software that was being cast off.
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens. I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
That sounds a lot like Bizarre Furhead. Does anybody else remember a time when software didn't take itself all that seriously? I sure do, and one very good example of that was screensaver software, such as After Dark 3.0. I got the discs and the book for this, but I didn't get the manual, so I actually had to find a crack for it. After Dark, for those of you who don't know, because it was about 15-20 years ago, After Dark was a collection of highly amusing screensavers, including the legendary Flying Toasters. There were some other amusing ones as well. Anyway, there you have it. What I feel is a truly unique and interesting machine with an awesome color display from Apple's early portable computer days. Thanks for watching.